Good evening. So it's been quite a while since I've done what I would consider a real philosophy talk video, and I felt like doing one this evening. I wanted to talk more about causality, specifically, but about the purpose of these philosophy talks videos in general, and the progress I'm making on the model, and sort of go over some stuff in general. So, I've decided that at the heart of the model is a reduction of all reality to intention on some level, is one way of putting it. It's a dismantling of conventional understandings of truth and causality, which my take on causality now is this. Truth is the illusion of time, and causality is the illusion of space. What I mean by this is as follows. So, in an earlier video, I talked about this analogy in which you've got a bunch of people and they're watching a film. It's very widescreen. Sometimes they can see only parts of the film, sometimes they can see other parts, sometimes they can see kind of the whole thing, and etc., etc. Anyway, their job is to predict what the characters in this movie do. And they can predict for any character they want. There's shitloads of characters, like way more than they could even. So when they're choosing which character, they have some favorites that they choose over and over again, mostly. Or they're kind of choosing at random based on gut. Like, oh, that one looks pretty good to choose. Let me bet on him this time. So anyway, their job is to predict the behavior of these characters. If they do it well and predict well, then they get paid extra. If they do it badly and they don't predict well, then they get paid less. Now, Bob works at this company, and there's a character named Dr. Smith, Dr. Johnson, or whatever, on the TV show. So Bob's like, well, that's a great character. I can predict him very consistently, and not everybody can around here. So he's a great character. I love him. He's my favorite character. And I hate Mary Sue, the nurse character. Every time I try to predict her, I've been wrong. I just stopped even trying now. Screw her. Mary Sue, so unpredictable. And then, meanwhile, like 50 other people, regular, normal people with normal jobs, are watching the same show in some other location. And they're also focusing on Dr. Johnson and Mary Sue. Now, it turns out that in the show, the character Dr. Johnson is a sociopath who tortures people and just is all around evil and awful. Whereas Mary Sue is the hero. She does all sorts of heroic, selfless things and prioritizes principles above personal gain, and she's, just a wonderful saint. And so, now the person at that job over there is going to say, Dr. Johnson is a great character. He's very predictable. And people watching the show who don't have that job are going to say, Dr. Johnson's a terrible character. He's a sociopath. Okay, so now with the words great and terrible, we already understand that there's a lot of different ways people mean that. But I mean, if Dr. Johnson was predictable by all the workers and they could all profit from him and he was consistently predictable, then the people who are working at that factory might even have cause to say that Dr. Johnson is a morally good force in their lives. But you just say it's a morally good force. And then it's difficult to say, and then the other people would say, Dr. Johnson is not a morally good force. But they wouldn't be disagreeing, really. Neither of them would be lying. And they'd be using exactly the same symbols. They'd be speaking the same language. But they'd be meaning, the intention of their words is contingent, is the determining factor in whether what they're saying is true or not, obviously. Well, they're not intending to lie when they say he's a morally good character. They say he's morally good because he's predictable, as if all the characters were as predictable as Dr. Johnson, we'd all be rich. You know, if everybody in this weird planet gets magically cost-free groceries, cost-free to anyone, free groceries for a month every time Dr. Johnson does something evil on the show, and Dr. Johnson's evil behavior doesn't inspire sufficient evil behavior on the part of those watching it to outweigh the value of the free groceries, then it's hard to say that Dr. Johnson's behavior on the show is bad in any sense. You could say that would normally be bad except for its blah blah blah. I mean, but at this point you're starting to parse so much that you're avoiding the simple truth of the fact that truth is a function of intention. So somebody might be mistaken. If somebody's mistaken, then what we're saying is you believed what you said, but now you agree, if they agree they're mistaken, right? But now you should agree, having clarified the symbolic inconsistencies between our respective agencies and our shared frame of reference, you should agree with me, because you're mistaken. And I've shown you that the inconsistency with these other symbolic sets and blah 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 blah, and so there you go. Or they're lying, in which case they're intending for me, or the recipient of the communication, to believe something, not that's not true. We're there to mislead is the best way to put it, right? We want our symbols to cause another person to draw a specific conclusion that is inconsistent with how we normally, in other words, to say we're misleading somebody is that we are intentionally using words in a way that we're confident the other agent in question will interpret to mean what we want it to mean, which is not consistent with our own interpretation of what actually happened. Now, our own symbols, we have our own symbol set in our heads. See, that's the thing. That's what we're really comparing it against. If I took the last cookie, and I wasn't supposed to, and I say I didn't take it, that's been somebody else. In my own head, I already have a symbol set that I've well established, having processed the sensory data of taking the last cookie, and probably at the time having gone through some narrative construction about it, like, oh shit, I'm taking the last cookie. Mom said don't take the last cookie. I wonder if I'm going to get in trouble. Fuck it. This cookie looks good. You have that in your head already. It's there. So what's happening is you're giving out symbols that are inconsistent with your own symbols. And so your own symbols are likely to be consistent with any other random person's symbols when they are sufficiently simple and sufficiently linked to one or more frames of shared reference. So frames of shared reference doesn't have to be the physical world. It can be, if you are both like hardcore Christians, there's no way to argue with your friend Jane. My name's Mary, and my friend Jane. We're both hardcore Christians, and I'm married. I've just cheated on my husband, and there's no way for me to argue that that's fine to Jane. Not because of some actual thing in the physical world, but because they have a shared frame of reference for ethical models, or metaphysics, or whatever you want to call it, called Christianity. And they both already know that they agree with each other on that. That they can expect consistency with their expectations when I'm Mary or I'm Jane, and I say, "Oh, Mary, God bless you." I can consistently expect Mary to be like, "God bless you too," or "Thank you so much," and not be like, "Shh, God bless you too, I guess." What's this God shit? Mary's not going to do that because we've already established this shared frame of reference of ideas that have no relation whatsoever to the physical world. Okay, so now that I've established a shared frame of reference doesn't require a physical frame of reference, I would say that in the end we can see that all symbolic, that all truth is boils down to intention as measured through consistency with one's own symbols and as verified through a shared frame of reference. And the only verification process is, again, consistency is experiences both of you can reference together. So, well, you told me last week that you loved blue jackets, and I bought you this blue jacket, and you say, "I can't possibly wear that. I wouldn't be cut dead in a blue jacket." What's up with that, dog? So the inconsistencies are going to be stuff that we know about the other person. Either stuff that they've made static so that anyone can reference it by writing it down and putting it someplace public, or conversations we've had in the past. Conversations we've had in the past should also be static, except for the fact that we don't record everything. Anyway, the point is, the notion of truth as being something that either carries the language either carries truth or that language describes truth, they both are wrong. Truth is a word we use when a shared frame of reference has reached a sufficient level of consensus and is around which is built plenty of other things about which there's equal consensus, but everybody's going to agree with that. That's fine. So if I say, this is a pack of Marlboro Reds, well, yes it is. That's true because I'm looking at the thing in the world. No, it's true because we trust our visual input from this physical frame of reference enough that we believe if we see something like this and it's called that label is correct, right? That label is about a label about which we're going to have consensus. Let's say, but still, you're checking the physical world. You're actually looking at something, right? But the visual input is just one little component of our verification process. I mean, like maybe I'm holding it like this and you can't really read the words. Maybe it's some sort of like knockoff, pirated thing. And you're like, well, it actually is a Marlboro Red. Well, no, it's not actually. See, it's a Marlboro Reds. It's a Chinese knockoff brand. I fooled you, huh? That's why visual stimuli is only one of the parts of the equation. And you say, but see, that just proves my point. In the real world, it said Marlboro, so he was lying. That's what made it false. Well, no, it's not what made it false. What made it false was what I was telling you was inconsistent with my own set of symbols about what this is called. Otherwise, I was mistaken. And even if I was mistaken, that just means we've done the election, and 99.9% of people agree with me. So you're wrong. But what about things like 2 + 2 = 4? I mean, that's true independent of how many people agree with it. What about the world being round instead of flat? Well, they're true now. They weren't then. That's it. I mean, it's all about consistency. If in fact a set of symbols achieves your intentional goals, then it's true. That's why commands can actually have a truth value. Now, how is causality the myth of space? That's the next question, and I think the most important one to be addressed in this particular conversation, since it's maybe the newer idea. Well, causality is the same exact thing. There's no reason to have it, as I said in an earlier video. None whatsoever. What you're really saying with causality, when you're saying, oh, well, we figured out what the cause of that is, you know, I used in a previous example Mercury making hatters insane. Let's use in this example lead. Lead, people, when they first started making tin cans, sometimes they made them out of lead. And, of course, you get lead poisoning from that. And so at a certain point, people figured out why all these people were getting this weird sickness, and the reason was because of lead. So, Eric, how can you not say that's a causal relationship? Well, what I'm saying about it is it's causal in the same way that it's true to say that that's the cause. Which is, yeah, adjusting behavior to remove that element out of our stuff we did that, and we don't have the problem anymore. And we can see how that thing relates to the problem. But to say that it's caused or not caused is the same as saying it's true or not true. It's making it binary when it really isn't. Just as truth is a matter of consensus about the symbols and about consensus about intention, about with your own symbol sets, so too is causality about intention. Well, it's causal because by removing it, we were able to stop the thing. Or at least so far, unless the thing comes back, right? It actually wasn't the lead, it was whatever else that got removed accidentally because. And in fact, if anything, our causal conclusions are even more tenuous than our conclusions about truth. I mean, it wasn't long ago that they believed cigarettes caused throat cancer. But you know what? They don't. You know what causes throat cancer? A virus that you get engaging in oral sex. Sorry to be crude. I don't mean to be in the philosophy talk videos. In any context, really. I'm hopefully have outgrown crudeness. But making jokes about sex and stuff. I listen to the old me, and parts I'm mad about myself when I'm trying to be edgy or crude. Just boo, Eric, boo, I say to myself, boo. Anyway, boo for that, but hooray for this notion. That causality is just like truth. It's not binary like people think it is. It's a matter of consistency with intention. So, as long as it works, it's causal. Or, maybe it's not. And you don't know. Time changes that theory. So, with truth, however, we typically are a little more solid about it. That's why truth is a little more difficult to dismantle than causality. And the problem is this. In the constant battle between time and space, between change and stasis, we have a circumstance in which we cannot isolate either. And that's where quantum mechanics comes in, right? The whole, you can't both tell the direction something's going in its exact spot in space at the same time. The closer you get to one, the further you get from the other, or something like that, right? Same reason we can't distinguish whether exactly light's a wave or a particle, because that functions of both, because that's where time and space meet together, and then you can see the seams. Now for the rest of us, up here on the macro level, we don't feel that. And the reason we don't feel that, primarily, is because we construct our, I don't know why. I was going to say something that I don't think is true, actually. I don't think that's consistent with the rest of my model, so I'm not going to say that. So, here on the macro level, we are existing in a reality that allows us to treat time and space as though they were separate things, and to treat different objects in space as though they were in a distinct spot, because we're so small and everything's so big. That's both true of time and space, right? It has to be that way, or else we'd have all kinds of problems. It's like, if we're dealing on a scale of miles, it doesn't matter if something's moving centimeters. If we're dealing on a scope of years and decades, it doesn't matter if time's not constant at all, that it actually is really variable. That would be a disruptive quality, but it's not, because we operate in such small moments in such a big pond that we don't notice that the currents are always moving different directions in time, and we don't notice that the water temperature is changing, because we're just a bunch of little fish in random little spots in a big pond. That's how we are with time, okay? Time's constantly changing. It's moving faster, moving slower, at all times for every person differently. And we don't share a shared time-space at all. We share shared space. We don't share shared time. There's no time-space continuum, as they say. The time-space continuum, so to speak, can only be located in 3 spots: in light, in black holes, and at the quantum level. Every place else, time and space are separated. Each person maintains time within themselves at an independent flow of varying speeds over the course of their life. And, you know, it seems like we share time because of the way that our shared reference points of time occur simultaneously, it seems, for each of us on a regular basis. So it's like, well, we all agree the sun is setting right now, or that, you know, I can call you and say, is it dark where you are 5 miles from here? Yeah? Okay, so it's night there too? Okay. So we're going along the same time, right? Because it's day over there, it's day over here, it's night over there, it's night over there. It's not like if you were going faster, then pretty soon we'd be out of whack, right? It wouldn't stay in line. Well, it's because they're on their own time too. And the thing is, they're part of the realm of physical reference. So they have for us, they have their own variations in time too. It's not, the sun going around, and I mean not the sun going around, the Earth going around the sun, and I'm back in geocentric astronomy. Shit like that. Right? They have their own time variations too, but again, it's a matter of well, first of all, I mean they're objects in space. As part of the deal, it's part of the deal of separation of time and space. They have persistence beyond They have persistence. So they persist. Anyway. So yeah. Truth and causality are both illusions that are actually just no different than correlation. They're just strong correlations. That's it. And we determine causality by comparison with our intention, not with correlative data, really. As evidenced by the fact that there's lots of medications in the market that we use but don't really understand how they work. Meh. Okay, well anyway, there's more of this stuff, a lot more of this stuff. I gotta watch the old videos again. That's what I want to talk about briefly. That's why I'm making these. So I can go back and watch them and realize, oh, okay, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. I need to explore this, I need to explore that. So, some of the key issues here in this whole model, we're talking about, obviously the largest set is a set of all things that can be symbolized. It's divided into three components: time, space, and agency. Language, numbers and such, give rise to the notion of truth under the subset of agency. And people mistake truth for a verifiable thing, verifiable against some sort of static reference point, or that it's reflective of some law of the universe that's permanent or whatever. But it's not at all. It's just on a slower time. It's just slow enough that it seems static to us. It doesn't seem, it's like a tree. It doesn't seem to be growing, but it gets bigger. So too with the things that appear static to us. When we say, oh well, there's this law of gravity, that's permanent. That's not variable. Or we say, oh, time is constant, time is steady. Or, okay, we accept time is relative because of Einstein, but we still see it as a single thing, and each of us views it from a different angle. No, it's not that either. It's not a single thing. It's everybody has their own time. And that's true of objects as well. Yeah. The end for this one. More later. I got a lot of more ideas on this stuff. I gotta think more.